All right, welcome to this video. The thing I wanted to talk about with this one is just kind of scoring how grades go about in my class. The first thing is, how do I get the grades? And there's going to be a variety of things that we're going to do. There are going to be some standard tests where you take the tests and then I grade it and it comes off of a percentage. There's a lot of assignments that are pass-fail. And pretty much, or should I say completion credit, where you complete the assignment, you get 100. You don't do this assignment, you get a 0. There's going to be more assignments that are coming in eventually where we're going to have rubrics. And the Powtoon group assignment will have, I will work on producing a rubric so that way you can see, how I would grade something like that. The thing with grading, and with most classes, you do your work, you're going to be fine. But last week I mentioned that late work, you want to start taking off a certain number of points per day, and so that's what this spreadsheet is about. This also being a technology class, I wanted to show you how you can use technologies to kind of make things a little bit easier. So the first here is I just used Microsoft Excel to create a spreadsheet so that way you can see a little bit about what's going on. And Google, so like you can actually look in here and see some of the coding that I did. You can always pause this video and look at it. And if you want to learn how to do something like this, then you can always ask. But mostly what I wanted to point out is this idea of an additive percentage taken away. And so we start off, let's assume that you make any of these grades. Well, 20% means, like, if you made 100, you're going to lose 20 points per day. And as the math magic happens, works out, if you go in intervals of 5, you're losing a different point per day. So I changed things a little bit over here, and so you can see, like, if you started off with a 40, you're going to lose 8 points per day if you turn your assignment in late. So on as long as you meet the deadline, your score is fine. But then each day that you're late, I take off that 20% value. So if you started with a 90, you lose 18 points a day. So you go from having a 90 to a 72, 54, 36, 18, and then eventually 0. And one of the things about this additive percentage that I'm taking away every single time is, if you notice at the end of day 5, if you were 5 days late, it doesn't matter where you started at, you're going to have a value of 0 if you're 5 or more days late. That's and that's just going to be the way it is. I also wanted to show you using Desmos, just another way that you can look at this and kind of represent things. I'm going to move through this very quickly because I want to show you the value of, for one, knowing the math behind what's going on, and then also, number 2, knowing the technology, learning a little bit about the technology so that way you can see some about what's going on. I know that I'm looking at scores, so my grade depends upon the number of days late, the number of days. So my grade is going to be the dependent variable. So I'm looking at scores from 0 to 100, and if you notice, I'm going just a little bit beyond those grades. The dependent variable, what my grade is dependent upon is the days late, and so we're looking at a range of 6. But I'm going to just change my axis a little bit so that way you can just see some of what's going on. There's a trick in Desmos where I can represent things by lists. And so if I want, I want n, this is going to be my numbers of days late. So if it's 0 days late, that means it's on time. If it's 5 days late, that's going to be 0. And I can do things to represent this. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually making a little bit of a table. And if I were to zoom in on this, I don't want to at this moment, but here I can label these, and so you can see that I have 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Okay. And I want to use these points to represent how your grade is going to go. So now I'm going to do another note. Now this is Desmos. If you're in a math class, you cannot use desmos.com/calculator. You have to use the North Carolina approved version of Desmos. In the regular version of Desmos, you can actually make yourself a little bit of notes. So I'm going to use something called G to represent my grade. And so my grade, for whatever it is, I'm going to take 20%, which 20% is 0.2 written as a decimal. And I'm going to take 20% of the original grade. I'm going to take 20% of the original grade, and I'm going to subtract that, and I'm going to do this for each day. So now I'm going to multiply it by n. And so now I need to change the constraints. The lowest that a grade can go is 0, and the highest that the grade can go is 100. And I want this to go in steps of 1. And so what that's going to do is that's going to calculate. This is going to calculate what my grade is. And again, this value, which I could condense it, I could factor out a G, and but that's not really necessary. This was my independent variable, which is the y, value. This is actually a computer program, so now I'm going to give it a new name because this is the equation. This is the formula. I'm going to say, I'm going to call it V for value. And so now, since it's named V, I can just plug it in here. And now you see this if you start off with the grade 0, it makes sense that it doesn't matter how many days late, it's always going to be 0. But as I change this, you can now see how the grades are going to work out. So I'm going to go to 50. And if you remember from the chart, if you start off with a grade of 50, 20% is 10 points per day. So at 0 days, I'm at 50. Then at 1, I'm at 40, 2, and 30, 3, 20, and so on. And at a grade of 100, then I'm losing 20 points per day because that's 20%. At a grade of 95, I'm losing 19 points per day, and you can follow that through the math. But notice this never changes. So it doesn't matter what my grade is, doesn't matter how high I start or how low I start. If it's 5 or more days late, it doesn't matter how I start or how low I start. If it's 5 or more days late, your grade is always going to be a 0.